Hello and welcome to this year's Remembrance Festival at Ormiston Sudbury Academy. This is the 11th year that the festival has gone ahead, and over the years our collaboration with the Royal British Legion has raised thousands of pounds for charity. We really wanted to still go ahead this year despite our current situation, so running the festival online seemed like the most obvious solution. This evening will run as a slightly condensed version of our usual Remembrance Festival, a mixture of performances from our performing arts students and readings from members of the Royal British Legion in Sudbury. This will be followed by the last post and an opportunity for silent reflection to remember those who have fallen in wars and conflict across the world. Below this video is a link to our Just Giving page, OSA Remembrance Festival 2020. I would like to encourage everyone to donate as much as they can, with all proceeds going directly to the Royal British Legion. Tickets for this event are usually £5, however any donation would be appreciated, as due to the current lockdown, the poppy appeal will be much more difficult for the Legion this year. Our first performance this evening is inspired by the professional work Five Soldiers. Originally choreographed by Rosie Kay, Five Soldiers is a theatrical response to the realities of war. Specifically, it looks at how the human body remains essential to war, even in the 21st century. This evening's choreography is an adaptation of the work put together by the extremely talented Year 11 dance students to demonstrate their understanding of the above themes and as a tribute to those who have fought in or lost people in war. Next up is a reading from the book No Glorious Dead by Shirley Smith. The Lancastria Disaster 1940 will be read by Dean Scott, who's the Vice Chairman of the Sudbury branch of the Royal British Legion.
The Lancastria Disaster 1940. For the evacuation of the British Expeditionary Force at Dunkirk between the 26th of May and the 4th of June was being hailed a triumph. A great tragedy that would be hushed up was taking place on the Atlantic coast of France. With France on the verge of collapse, remaining forces set out for the Atlantic coast. There were largely support units such as RAF ground crew, engineers and others in transport and communication roles. Waiting for them off the coast of St. Nazaire was the Cunard liner Lancastria in the role of troop ship. The situation was so desperate that as many as 6,500 were taken on board, including some civilians. The figure is one of several estimates, one as high as 9,000, although the true amount will probably never be known. The ship was still at anchor when the Luftwaffe scored several hits, including a bomb down the line with a single funnel into the engine room. It was a death blow, the troop ship rolling over and sinking in 20 minutes with many trapped below decks and hundreds clinging to the upturned hull. Around 2,500 survivors were rescued, telling stories of being machine gunned as they struggled in the oil-covered sea. The loss of life was so great, Winston Churchill imposed censorship, fearing the news would damage the country's morale at a time when invasion was imminent. The death toll is estimated at around 4,000, remaining the worst maritime disaster in British history. Sudbury lost 3 men on board the Lancastria, one of them a local hero who died a hero. Lance Corporal Donald Theobald, military police, had been a successful amateur boxer before the war and tipped for a professional career. When Lancastria went down, he used his strength to save one man and died attempting to save others. It was after the war that Flight Sergeant Cherry wrote to his parents, Herbert and Lily Theobald, of Humphrey Road and told of his rescue by their son. We were on the ship together when it was hit. I got a splinter in the leg and a few burns. Don got me up on deck. I went back to help others who were injured. It was the last time I saw him. I owe my life to him. Donald's body was never found and he is remembered on the Dunkirk Memorial. Another Sudbury man, Corporal Charles Alfred Golding, aged 31, who was living with his wife Joyce in Plough Lane. It's possible that he was among 800 RAF personnel who died when a bomb scored a direct hit on the hold where they were billeted. His name is among 20,000 RAF war dead who have no known grave on the Air Force's memorial at Runnymede near Windsor. 4 months later, the French were burying bodies that had washed up on the beaches. One was that of Private Ernest Walter Smith of the Royal Army Service Corps, who was aged 25. He lived with his parents Walter and Annie Smith in Upper East Street. His body was washed ashore at Cleon-sur-Mer, south of St. Nazaire. The town mayor ordered trees to be felled for coffins so that he and others would have a decent funeral. His grave is one of more than 70 British military graves in the cemetery, mostly those of men from the Lancastria.
Our next performance is by some of our Year 12 and 13 BTEC musical theatre students. They will be performing an arrangement of the song Someday from the musical The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Someday
Next up is another reading from the book No Glorious Dead by Shirley Smith. Victory in Sight will be read by Shirley Smith herself.
Victory in Sight and the Far East. On VE Day, Victory in Europe, on the 8th of May 1945, Sudbury celebrated all day and long into the night. Flags and bunting were brought out of storage to decorate shops, offices and homes. The Union flag, the Stars and Stripes and flags of other Allied nations fluttered above the town hall. At dusk, windows that had been blacked out all through the war years were thrown open so that light streamed out. It seemed as if most of the population of Sudbury was on the Market Hill, where loudspeakers relayed dance music in the afternoon and evening, and at one point the bells of all the 3 medieval churches rang triumphant peals. Mayor Sudbury Wheeler spoke from the town hall steps, and St Peter's Church was packed for a hastily arranged service of thanksgiving for peace. At dusk, the Market Hill was lit by searchlights, and a bonfire was built by the Scouts on the Croft. The crowd on the Market Hill danced and sang, and the celebrations went on late, but finally the mayor asked revellers to go home so that people living on the Market Hill could get some sleep. However, the war was still being fought across the other side of the world in the Far East, and it will be another 4 months before the world learned the truth of what had befallen 100,000 British and Commonwealth servicemen taken prisoner in Singapore in February 1942. Little had been heard of their fate, and the Japanese had refused the International Red Cross access to the prison camps. After VJ Day, Victory in Japan, on the 15th of August 1945, prisoners who were more corpse than alive were found in the prison camps. Among the survivors were men from Sudbury and the surrounding villages. The Japanese had starved their prisoners while forcing them, under constant threat of beatings, at heavy manual work in the unremittingly hostile tropical climate. Even in the monsoon season, they had worked 12 hours a day while debilitated by disease and suffering from tropical ulcers. 1 in 3 prisoners died of cholera, malnutrition, TB, beriberi, exhaustion or beatings, and summary execution. The 5th Suffolks were part of a huge workforce that built the notorious Death Railway that stretched 260 miles across Thailand into Burma. At least 13,000 Allied prisoners of war died building the railway. The 2 Suffolk battalions lost more than 760 of those who had landed in Singapore in February 1942, including men from Sudbury. Former Suffolk Free Press reporter Albert Bear died just a week after VJ Day. Having survived for so long, it was extra sorrow for his parents, Walter and Jane Bear, to lose their son when he was so close to coming home. Philip Carhill, aged 25, also worked on the railway. He was one of 214 who died in a cholera epidemic in just one camp in 1943. He had worked at Sudbury Mill before the war and lived with his family in Cross Street. Private Thomas Codlin died the same day, aged 29. His wife and young child lived in East Street. Private George Cecil, aged 22, was one of 5 more Sudbury men who died in the next few months. He was already dead from malaria when a postcard reached his parents saying that he was well and a prisoner. 10 days later, Private Robert Sargent, known as Joe, died from beriberi, a disease caused by vitamin deficiency and results in heart failure. He had married his sweetheart Doris just before leaving for Singapore. Private Jimmy Pilgrim lost his life on the railway. He was aged 25 and lived with his mother in Mill Lane. The toll continued with the death of Company Quartermaster Sergeant Robert McAusland. Aged 33, before the war, he was a skilled textile designer in Sudbury's weaving industry and lived with his wife Cecilia in Cornard Road. Corporal Robert Moore, known as Jimmy, was one of 3 brothers. Aged 26, he was married, and his wife Amy worked at the county cinema. His brother Joseph had been lost in 1941 when his ship, HMS Chapdena, had been sunk. Private Billy Nunn, aged 24, was killed just before the end of the war. Having survived working on the railway, he died when the Americans bombed the island of Formosa, where he had been shipped as forced labour. He was the son of a First World War veteran and was an apprenticed carpenter, living with his family in Church Street. His heartbroken mother had his Suffolk Regiment cap badge dipped in silver and wore it until her death when it was buried with her. Many men who survived the camps continued to suffer with health problems both physically and mentally for the rest of their lives. They were expected to come home and just get on with their life. It was not until March 2000 that Martin Bell, Member of Parliament, quoted to the House of Commons extracts from Sudbury man Harold Locke's book, when he was a prisoner of war in Java in 1942. At first, Parliament said that the Far East prisoners could not be treated any differently, but the campaign gathered momentum, and 9 months later the government agreed to pay £10,000 compensation to each survivor or the widow of those who had died.
The next performance is from our alumni at Close Harmony Choir. Miss Conway-Jarrett and myself have recorded and sent out vocal parts, and our ex-students have then learnt these and recorded themselves from their various different lockdown locations. We're eternally grateful, and they are performing A Gaelic Blessing by John Rutter. We will now be taking a moment to remember all those who have fallen for their country in wars and conflicts around the world. The last post will be played to start the silence, followed by a minute of reflection, and then the end of the silence will be signalled by the Kohima epitaph.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
When you go home, tell them of us and say, for their tomorrow we gave our today.
Thank you for attending our Remembrance Festival this year. I'm delighted that we were still able to go ahead, despite everything that's going on in the world at the moment. I would like to encourage people once more to visit our Just Giving page, OSA Remembrance Festival 2020. It's linked below. And please donate as much as you can. The video now will stay available online, so please also share and promote the festival on social media so that we can raise as much money as possible for the Royal British Legion. Thank you again to everyone who has contributed to this year's festival in any way, and we'll see you again next year at Remembrance Festival 2021, which hopefully will be back in the auditorium at Ormiston Sudbury Academy. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night, sweetheart, well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart, well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, but I really must say, good night, sweetheart, good night. Good night, sweetheart, well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart, well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, but I really must say, good night, sweetheart, good night, good night. Well, your mother and your father might not like it if I stay here too long.